The New York Times is catching up with reality in an article published on November 13th, 2023. The article is titled, "How Much Can Trees Fight Climate Change? Massively, but not alone, study finds." The article in the New York Times was published only 3 years, 9 months, and 6 days after I posted an article at GuyMcPherson.com titled, "Can Trees Sequester Enough Carbon?" The article, the NatureBat's last blog, points out that, quote, "Obviously, the process of photosynthesis ensures that trees sequester carbon from the atmosphere," end quote. It then goes on to pose a few important questions. Quote, "How fast do trees sequester carbon from the atmosphere? How much carbon do trees sequester? What negative side effects are associated with planting large numbers of trees?" End quote. The New York Times, in its story about trees fighting climate change, asks these questions. Quote, "If we protect all current forests, where will people get timber, rubber, and palm oil? Would forests be able to store carbon quickly enough? And how much carbon would be lost to fire, drought, and pests as climate change intensifies?" End quote. In other words, the Times is beginning to ask the same kinds of questions I've been asking for a few years. As such, the Times, in this rare case, is actually providing some benefit in helping us decide how to proceed. The New York Times article refers to a peer-reviewed paper in Nature titled "Integrated Global Assessment of the Natural Forest Carbon Potential." The paper in Nature was written by more than 200 authors and published on November 13th, 2023. It was written in part to address the controversy surrounding research from 2019 that spurred the Trillion Trees movement. The article in the New York Times quotes Thomas Crowther, quote, "the senior author of the paper in Nature and professor of ecology at ETH Zurich, a university in Switzerland," end quote. Crowther said, quote, "If we continue emitting carbon, as we've done to date, then droughts and fires and other extreme events will continue to threaten the scale of the global forest system, further limiting its potential to contribute," end quote. Crowther indicated that careless language led to trees being incorrectly labeled, quote, "as a silver bullet to climate change," end quote. He fears that countries and companies will keep treating forests in this manner, using them for carbon offsets to enable the continued use of fossil fuels. Crowther was quoted in the article in the Times like this, quote, "We are all terrified that this potential of nature gets misused. Nature has such spectacular potential to help us tackle global threats, but it will be devastating if major organizations use nature as an excuse to do more harm to our planet," end quote. The abstract of the peer-reviewed paper in Nature briefly provides a reasonable overview of the issue. Quote, "Forests are a potential terrestrial carbon sink, but the anthropogenic changes in land use and climate have considerably reduced the scale of this system. At present, global forest carbon storage is markedly under the natural potential, with a total deficit of 226 gigatons in areas with low human footprint. Most, 61%, of this potential is in areas with existing forests, in which ecosystem protection can allow forests to recover to maturity. The remaining 39% of potential lies in regions in which forests have been removed or fragmented. Although forests cannot be a substitute for emissions reductions, our results support the idea that conservation, restoration, and sustainable management of diverse forests offer valuable contributions to meeting global climate and biodiversity targets," end quote. I am not saying we should abandon the planting of trees. After all, as pointed out in a key paragraph in the article in the Times, quote, "Forests are essential to tackling both the climate and biodiversity crises. They offer food, shelter, and shade to humans and countless other species. They clean our air and water, and they pull climate-warming carbon out of the atmosphere. As the climate crisis intensifies, that ability has made them controversial. How much can we rely on trees to get us out of this mess?" End quote. The much-used Chinese proverb is applicable in this case. Quote, "The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now." End quote. This proverb aside, let's not continue to fool ourselves and others with simplistic measures intended primarily to make us feel good about ourselves. The fact is that we are in the midst of abrupt, irreversible climate change. As I have pointed out previously, Earth has been in the midst of a mass extinction event for more than 30 years. Ongoing human-driven change is proceeding at a faster rate than when a meteor struck Earth about 66 million years ago, driving the dinosaurs to extinction and contributing to the rise of mammals, including humans. We will not get out of this mess simply by planting trees, even if tree planting is accompanied by other half measures. Abrupt, irreversible climate change is already underlying the ongoing mass extinction event. It is certain to worsen. Because ongoing efforts fall squarely into the categories of too little and too late, our species is virtually certain to join 8 other species in the genus Homo that have already gone extinct. Rather than bemoan our fate and spend our short time on Earth in a depressed emotional state, let us seek the joy to be found in helping others. In doing so, perhaps joy will find us.